Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Finger Lakes region of New York, where 75 years ago, a small town first held a street race, a Grand Prix, but for many reasons constructed a purpose-built circuit just a few years later to become, and it became the first permanent home of the United States Formula One Grand Prix. It's a circuit that's known as much for speed as it is for the Blue Armco that still rings the track here. And this weekend, the Hoosier Racing Tire SCCA Super Tour descends upon the mecca of North American road racing, and it's 3.4 miles of power and fury, Watkins Glen International. I'm Gregg Ginsberg with Josh Ashby joining me in the booth for this afternoon's qualifying session, and His Eminence Larry Lefty McLeod, he's going to be joining us tomorrow when we get to go racing. So good afternoon, Josh, and welcome to WGI.
Well, I should be the one welcoming you guys to WGI since I live here, but yes, it's great to see the SCCA Majors Super Tour here once again on the historic asphalt here of Watkins Glen International, which I do have to correct you that we were actually the third Formula One track. I was tried twice.
First permanent Formula One circuit. Yes, I said permanent. Permanent. Yes, I know we're out.
We're splitting hairs already.
Yes. Don't worry. In 15 minutes, nobody will remember this part of the conversation. All right, so we're getting underway with our second qualifying sessions of the day. We had 8 different run groups on track starting this morning for their first qualifying sessions. We're starting the second round of qualifying sessions here for our 8 different run groups. We're going to get through. We're going to go through 5 of them this afternoon. We're actually going to wrap qualifying up tomorrow morning, starting at 8:30 in the morning, and then we'll go racing tomorrow. Racing scheduled to start tomorrow, somewhere a little bit after 10 o'clock, around 10:15 tomorrow morning, where we will have our 25-minute sprint races for all 8 of those run groups, and then on Sunday, our feature races, 14 laps or 35 minutes, whichever comes first. And so on track right now, the very first of the qualifying sessions that we're going to be sending you today is Formula F, Formula V, and Formula 600. And give just a quick little recap of what we saw this morning, Josh, in qualifying. Our fastest driver in this group on track, Calvin Stewart, former national champion in Formula 600 out of Novi, Michigan, driving his Nova car with a qualifying time of 1:59.821. Keith Jocelyn and David Lapham in their Formula 600 machine, second and third fastest overall at a 2:01.28 and a 2:01.80 respectively. In Formula 600, we have I believe 5 entrants over the course of the weekend. Now, Calvin's putting in those qualifying times today. We're not going to see him race tomorrow because of the Sabbath. He'll be back with us on Sunday morning. So obviously getting in good qualifying times today, somewhat critical, because that first race of the weekend also serves as a qualifying session for our feature races on Sunday. So those Sunday races, the grids are set by the fastest times in the qualifying sessions, whether it be today or tomorrow morning, and then also by the races tomorrow. In Formula F, fastest driver on track out of Lexington, South Carolina, Chris Smith, running a 2:01.893 is his fastest lap. Jonathan Kotek, second fastest at a 2:02.27, and then Dexter Suba at a 2:03. Kotek out of Atlantic Beach, Florida, and Dexter Suba out of Hollis, New Hampshire. And in Formula F, we've got I believe, a 8-car field, and a pretty darn strong field in there, all fairly closely matched. But the largest field in this group that we have is in Formula V, where we have a 14-car field, and after one qualifying session, that 14-car field headed up by Alex Scaler out of Asbury, New Jersey, in the Scaler Mark I, the chassis named after himself, as he's done quite a bit of engineering work on it. Qualifying time for him at 2:14.67, with Andrew Whitston, former national champion, 2:15.32 in the book, so about 6/10 of a second off of Scaler's time. Zach Whitston with a 2:17.229, so just about 9/10 off of his brother's times, as we have our drivers now out on track for what are 25-minute qualifying sessions. Fairly long qualifying sessions here, Josh.
Yeah, definitely. And with the weather today, track's getting warm, so it's time to put down some good laps and hope that it'll be enough to hold for tomorrow.
Indeed. So we're starting to see some times come in as our drivers now they've completed most of them now one flying lap. Fastest driver at this point, James Weeda. And Weeda turns in a 2:03.365, not quite where he was earlier this morning. And for the tires that these drivers are running, it's going to take 2 or 3 laps probably to come up to temps on what is already a very warm day here in the Finger Lakes. About 86 degrees, Josh, and there's a bit of humidity, which is a bit of a surprise for this area here as well.
Yeah, and we have today's forecast was supposed to be high into the 90s, so yeah.
Yeah,
it's a little warm.
It's a little warm
this early in the season for us.
And it looks like we've got a waving yellow over going down into the heel of the boot. We'll see if we can get word on what that car is, and I'm getting word now that car has just gotten back underway, and we'll get the number on it. And it was the 07 car of Calvin Stewart who spun the car right at the apex of that heavily cambered apex at the heel of the boot, and he has managed to get that car back underway now. So we're back to green flag conditions all around the course. But I was going to say about the weather, and Josh, I think this is pretty much par for the course for any event that I call or have called this season. It either rains or the temperatures drop about 20 degrees from when before the event starts, and it's supposed to get down to around down into the mid 70s over the next 2 days, over the course of Saturday and Sunday. So a little bit cooler conditions than these drivers are going to encounter here today for their qualifying sessions.
Yeah, most definitely. Although there is a nice breeze going down the front straightaway, so, the crews might be able to cool themselves off slightly. But as you're saying, right now, James Weeda has pulled in a lap best time of 2:01.540. And at this time, let's take a look at what the track records are for for this group. For Formula 600, we're looking at a 2-minute .278. And then for Formula F, it is a 2-minute .633. And for Formula V, it is a 2:14.288. As of right now, Weeda in his Formula 600 has pulled a 2:01.54 flat.
Yeah, and so Calvin Stewart, who this morning, when the temperatures weren't that much cooler, it was right or actually around 76, 77 degrees, so maybe somewhat similar to what these racers will encounter on track tomorrow, turned in at 1:59.821. So about 0.4 of a second, actually about 45 hundredths of a second underneath the track record. And again, that is still the bogey time that James Weeda and the rest of, and now Keith Jocelyn, who goes to the top of the leaderboard in Formula 600, who turns in a 2-minute .303. What he is trying to improve upon, that is a faster time than he ran this morning, whereas this morning he ran a 2:01.286, so about 9/10 faster than he ran today. Knowing that Stewart is not going to be on the grid for tomorrow's race, that would put him provisionally on pole for tomorrow's race, although is the second fastest time overall. If we take a look at Formula F, again, yesterday our fastest Formula F driver, or not yesterday, but this morning, our fastest Formula F driver, Chris Smith, in the number 57 machine out of Lexington, South Carolina, he turned in a 2:01.893, and that is still about a 10th clear of Jonathan Kotick's times. Kotick has a 2:02 flat, or 2:02.05 currently in the books in Formula F. And in Formula V, Andrew Whitston now goes to the top of the leaderboard at a 2:16.845. That is 1.2 seconds off of Scalar's best times from earlier today.
I've already seen at least one Formula 600 do 2 laps and then head in. Unfortunately, I couldn't catch the number on it, but it was a white machine. I'm not sure who it would be. So there's already one guy who said, I think this is all it's got in it for a warm day like that. It probably is going and cooling off right now.
That's right, and you can see there on our cameras going through turn 1, a good portion of the Formula V field still all in a row there, although we've just had one run very, very wide coming out of turn 1, and but all of them using the draft to their advantage, try to keep up speed here. Not only will you see racing like this in Formula V, but certainly here in qualifying as well. Although looking very much like a race here, Josh. They're all spreading out 2 and 3 wide as they come down the backstretch and head towards the inner loop, towards the bus stop chicane here, as they're all going to get back in line again and filter out.
I saw our leader in Formula V. Oh, there he is. He's decided that he is going to call it a session along with, it looks like the 22, that's Wida in Formula 600. Orange and black 600 now also looks like he's going to do the same. And it looks like a tire change for one of the yellow Formula F machines.
Yeah, it looks like one of the Pelfrey machines there. And we'll get the number in a moment. So that was Andrew Whitston in the number 12 Formula V, who's gone back to the paddock after turning a 216. And I believe that is Ken Bukilian, who in the 83 machine, that yellow Pelfrey Mygale that is there. They are they're not just checking tire pressures and temperatures. They're actually making a tire change over there on that machine as well.
And that's Jocelyn coming in too and calling it a session.
Yeah, and that's so Jocelyn with the fastest lap time, and I'm wondering if these drivers, they're just finding that there isn't the speed in the track right now with the raised temperatures that they saw earlier. But let's do this, Josh. We're just about halfway through our first qualifying session of the day. Let me first make a call to the grid for our next group, and then we're going to take a small break, thanks to some of our partners and sponsors. Attention in the paddock, first call to the grid for race group number 2, Spec Miata. Please start heading to the grid. Spec Miata drivers, this is your first call to the grid. And so, Josh, let's take that quick little break. And when we come back, we'll take you all the way to the end of our first qualifying session of the first of our Q2 sessions here at Watkins Glen International, where you're watching the 2023 Hoosier Racing Tire SCCA Super Tour qualifying live from Watkins Glen International.
Hoosier Racing Tire is proud to be the presenting sponsor of SCCA's Super Tour. Hoosier's mission is to be the dominant, customer-driven provider of tires to race teams domestically and internationally. Realizing Hoosier's existence and continued success is dependent upon how well we meet our customers' expectations by providing the safest, most reliable, high-quality race tires that put you in the winner's circle. For more information, see one of our trackside support personnel or the local Hoosier Tire racing dealer nearest you, or contact us at HoosierTire.com. Hoosier Racing Tires, truly designed for champions.
Hagerty is the official and exclusive insurance partner for the Sports Car Club of America. Hagerty provides affordable off-track insurance protection for motorsports vehicles while in the paddock, in transit, in storage, and at the shop. They provide guaranteed value coverage and even have protection for your trailers. SCCA members can save 5% on insurance through Hagerty. Learn more at Hagerty.com. Hagerty, let's drive together.
Ready for a new race trailer? Bravo Trailers is the exclusive trailer partner of the SCCA. Owned by longtime SCCA racers, Bravo Trailers work better, load easier, and tow better because we build them with racers in mind. Visit bravotrailers.com to see your new trailer in aluminum or steel.
For over 25 years, championship-winning drivers and teams have demanded Hawk Performance Motorsports brake pads. Now you can have their advanced technology on your daily car, truck, or SUV with Hawk Performance Street products. With the improved HP Plus pad for that hybrid street and track feel, or Super Duty pads for tow vehicles, their all-new ER1 brake pad designed to take on even the longest race, and their all-new high-performance brake fluid, Hawk has all of your braking needs covered. Visit hawkperformance.com and like them on Facebook or Instagram to learn more about the Hawk Performance Advantage. Hawk Performance, what's stopping you?
And welcome back to Watkins Glen International for the 2023 Hoosier Racing Tire SCCA Super Tour. I'm Gregg Ginsberg along with Josh Ashby, and we're bringing you qualifying here from the Glen today. We're going to be going racing tomorrow morning, and Larry Lefty McLeod will be joining us. And we're in the middle of our very first qualifying session of the afternoon, our Q2 sessions here for the Super Tour with Formula F, Formula V, and Formula 600. And I wanted to correct a little error here. I said that the machine, the Pelfrey Motorsports machine on the pit lane getting a tire change was Ken Bukilian in the number 83 machine. It's actually Jonathan Kotek, multi-time, I believe, national champion and also podium finisher in Formula F, and don't believe he is still on the pit lane. Matter of fact, the pit lane now clear, and he has returned to the track. And currently it is Kotek with a 202.057. He is your fastest Formula F driver on track, and that is still about a tenth off of the qualifying time that Chris Smith put in. So all things, if they were to stay the same, Chris Smith, who I don't believe went out for qualifying this afternoon here, Josh. I think Ray Boyer, Chris Smith, and also Hunter Tapman all keeping their cars back behind the wall. Smith, still your provisional pole sitter in Formula F.
I want to point out that Calvin Stewart has just pulled his personal best in this session of 204.9, and that is a Novaker Blade from a 600 machine. And then Ken Bukilian, now there's a name, in Formula F also did his best with a 205.008, and those are for 5th and 6th overall respectively qualifying time.
Yeah, and that's a good pickup by Bukilian with that 205.008. This morning's qualifying session, he was at a 205.959. So he's found almost a full second on track here today, and we'll see if he can get any faster again as the temperature is definitely starting to ramp up here at the track. Wanted to welcome in as our great partner Brian Belanti calls our associate producers, everybody in the chat. We've got Nick Resputo here. Nice to see you, Nicholas, somewhere in real world racing and not just in the virtual world. We've got, of course, one of my announcing partners on the East Coast. Just worked an event with him at the New Jersey Motorsports Park for the South Jersey region of the SCCA last weekend, Brian Donati. We've got Scott Brellier, father of Lauren Brellier, here as well. And he is, I think, telling us that we need to go look at Formula V, and we're going to get there in just a moment. Of course, his daughter Lauren, and I believe Scott as well, spent quite a bit of time behind the wheel of a Formula V machine. And of course, we've got Russ Lundberg from RGL Motorsports, who was actually at Portland International Raceway for our last Super Tour event, working on the grid there. But we do have some changes in Formula V, where Roger Siebenaller is now your fastest driver on track in this session, a 2:16.044 the time, and that is still about 1.4 seconds off of the time that Alex Scaler had put in earlier today. Scaler at a 2:16.389. So again, at least the Formula V is not quite able to hit the times that they ran this morning. In Formula 600, again, Keith Jocelyn, your fastest driver on track with a time of 2:03.03. Then James Wida, then Calvin Stewart, who has not been able to improve upon that 2:04.900. In Formula F, it is still Kotek, Suba, and Bukilian. Charles Foster now in the 27 machine. He turns in his fastest lap of the session on his 8th flying lap at 2:05.961. All right, real quick, Josh, let me make a call to the grid for our next group. Attention in the paddock, second call to the grid for race group number 2, Spec Miata. Please start heading to the grid. Race group 2 Spec Miata, please start heading to the grid. Your qualifying session is next.
And now we see what I'm guessing is Charles Foster has reported pit side as well. Also, the Zebra Print Formula V looks like he is going to call it a session along with the 118 Formula V machine. So a lot of guys happy with what they're running out there. This is actually the first time in a couple years I think we've seen Charles Foster back here at Watkins Glen International due to, of course, the pandemic. It's good to see him back running that beautiful number 27.
All right, as we now have just a touch over 4 minutes remaining here in this 25-minute qualifying session. Not a lot of changes up at the top of the field. Looks like Michael Hinkle in the number 37 protoform has just set his fastest lap in Formula V, currently running 11th fastest. And Ron Whitston on the previous lap set his personal best at a 2:22.267, and he's been running fairly consistent lap times here, all within about a tenth of a second. Whitston currently your 13th fastest driver in Formula V.
As I mentioned with Charles Foster, just before he reported pit side, he reported his best time of the session. That's a 2:05.961. Which is 7th overall currently on the timesheets.
All right, let's see if we have any more drivers setting fast laps here. Looks like Robert Gross currently running 6th fastest in Formula F. Driving his Piper. He's out of Washington Township, Michigan, and fast time for Mr. Gross now at 2:12.398. And if we compare that to where he was earlier today, he ran a 2:12.140 in the morning session. So not an advance from there.
We are just about 2 minutes and 10 seconds left in this session, so think anybody's got anything more to show, or do you think this is...
Well, I think, and I think we've seen most of our drivers pretty much in a holding pattern for the last number of laps, and I think as they're putting more heat in the equipment here, and as much as we talk about Watkins Glen really promoting speed and how the camber in a lot of these corners really helps you out, it also puts a lot of load on those outside tires, and this is a racetrack that is predominantly a right-hand turn, so that that outside left front tire, in some cases the left rear tire, they're going to get a lot of heat in them, and after a while you get to the point of those diminishing returns, and we may not see anything faster here at the end. But just as I say that, Alex Scaler puts in his fastest lap of the session at 2:15.963. Again, I will mention and couch that by saying not quite as fast as he ran this morning, but the fact that he set that time on lap number 9, I think, is noteworthy. We'll see if he's got at least one more in him, as we have now less than 1 minute left on the clock. And we will check to see if we have any drivers that can put in that last moment flyer, as we still have a couple of Formula Vs working together, working the draft. Although the majority of that Formula V field has started to stretch out. We had Jonathan Kotick, our fastest Formula F driver, cross the start-finish line. He's going to get the opportunity to set one more flying lap, as there was about 20 seconds remaining on the clock when he did. He did not improve that last time by. He was about 15 hundredths of a second off of his previous best. He's that yellow number 80 machine you see coming up, leading those three cars up through the S's right now. And the checkered flag, it is now being displayed. So all following cars will get the checkered flag, but the last flying laps here will count. And we'll see how things play out for these drivers here. First driver to come across the line and take the checkered flag. That is, I believe, the number 62 machine of Robert Gross, that bright red. The bright red Piper comes across the line. Gross does not improve, currently sitting 6th in Formula V. Ken Bakulian crosses the stripe. I'm sorry, that was Jonathan Kotick, who sets his fastest lap of the session, Josh, on his very last lap. Turns in a 2:01.959. And that is fast enough. Well, he was second fastest of the day after one qualifying session. Chris Smith had the provisional pole coming into this session, and he's going to hold on to it. Smith ran a 2:01.893 this morning. Kotick on his last lap, a 2:01.959. So Kotick, who was second fastest this morning, fastest this afternoon, but he's going to go into tomorrow morning's race. Again, for Formula F, Formula V, and Formula 600, their race scheduled to start at 10:15 tomorrow morning. He's going to go in starting second in Formula F. If we take a look at Formula V, Alex Scaler, again, your fastest driver today, did not improve upon his times from this morning. But he was also your fastest driver this morning. He's going to be your pole sitter in Formula V. Then let's see, Andrew Whitston ran a 2:15.3 this morning. Roger Siebenauer a 2:16, and so Andrew Whitston will start second in Formula V. And then if we take a look at Formula 600, Keith Jocelyn was our fastest driver this afternoon, had a 2:03.03, but and that improves upon his times from yesterday, but could not improve upon the 1:59.821 set by Calvin Stewart. So for tomorrow's race, Keith Jocelyn will be your pole sitter, and I believe Jocelyn, who again fastest in this session overall, second fastest this morning, I believe he's going to start on the overall pole tomorrow morning. And unless he can improve upon Calvin Stewart's 1:59.821 in tomorrow's race, likely Stewart will be your pole sitter on Sunday. All right, so Josh, let's do this. Let's make a final call to the grid for our next group. Attention in the paddock, final call to the grid for race group number 2, Spec Miata. Please head to the grid now. You are scheduled to be on track in just a bit more than 5 minutes, about 7 minutes from now. So again, Spec Miata, race group number 2, please head to the grid. Your qualifying session is next. So Josh, let's take a quick break.
All right, sounds good.
And when we come back, we're going to have some Spec Miata action here from Watkins Glen International, where you are watching the 2023 Hoosier Racing Tire SCCA Super Tour. We'll be right back.
Tire Rack was established over 40 years ago by an SCCA member with a passion to find the right tires, wheels, brakes, and suspension products for racers and enthusiasts both on the street and on the track. As official tire retailer of Sports Car Club of America since 1995 and sponsor of the Runoffs Pole Award, along with the National Solo Program, Time Trials Nationals and National Tour, and Track Night in America, Tire Rack is proud to support the SCCA and its members as they go have fun with cars.
Mazza Vineyards is the exclusive sparkling wine for podium celebrations at the Hoosier Racing Tire SCCA Super Tour, SCCA Runoffs, and Tire Rack SCCA Pro Solo. Celebrate your race weekend with Mazza Vineyards and learn more at enjoymazza.com.
Summit Racing Equipment, the official high-performance source and proud sponsor of the SCCA road racing program, is celebrating its 55th anniversary as the world's speed shop.
Hagerty is the official and exclusive insurance partner for the Sports Car Club of America. Hagerty provides affordable off-track insurance protection for motorsports vehicles while in the paddock, in transit, in storage, and at the shop. They provide guaranteed value coverage and even have protection for your trailers. SCCA members can save 5% on insurance through Hagerty. Learn more at Hagerty.com. Hagerty, let's drive together.
Hoosier Racing Tire is proud to be the presenting sponsor of SCCA's Super Tour. Hoosier's mission is to be the dominant, customer-driven provider of tires to race teams domestically and internationally. Realizing Hoosier's existence and continued success is dependent upon how well we meet our customers' expectations by providing the safest, most reliable, high-quality race tires that put you in the winner's circle. For more information, see one of our trackside support personnel or the local Hoosier Tire racing dealer nearest you, or contact us at HoosierTire.com. Hoosier Racing Tires, truly designed for champions.
And welcome back to Watkins Glen International, the 2023 Hoosier Racing Tire SCCA Super Tour. I'm Gregg Ginsberg along with Josh Ashby, and we're bringing you 5 qualifying sessions this afternoon. We're actually going to finish up qualifying tomorrow morning before we go racing here. But Josh, next up is Spec Miata. And despite what Mike Collins has texted me offline saying that there was 100% track limit violations here from all of our drivers, and we're starting over, that's, as far as I know, not the case. But we had 43 drivers set times in qualifying this morning. And fastest of the bunch was Frankie Barroso, driver of the number 48 machine out of Miami Springs, Florida. The bogey time that everybody's trying to beat right now, a 2:15.282. Second fastest, still listed as Austin, Texas, but I believe now living right outside of Charlotte, North Carolina. It's Travis Wiley in the number 77 machine. Michael Tinnis, who I used to race against in ITB. He used to race a Volkswagen A4 Golf. He is running Spec Miata, and he is out of East Meadow, New York, and representing the New York region. Michael, third fastest driver here with a qualifying time of 2:15.379, about 4/10 of a second clear of Chuck McTudis, who is, I'd say, probably one of the favorites once again to come home with the national championship. Chris Cuifo, fifth fastest. Danny Stain in the number 39 machine, multi-time national champion in Super Touring Light. Currently sixth fastest. He is Chuck McTudis' teammate Brian Henderson. Seventh fastest, Nick Bruni, who's our reigning national champion. Eighth fastest with Christian Semecki. Ninth, and Elvie Gubar, former national champion. 10th fastest, and again out of a fairly extensive 43 car field here at the Glen.
Yeah, this is one of those classes that I love to watch, especially here at Watkins Glen, because they draft like it's Daytona on the last lap in the last turn.
All right, and let's see here. Got a whole bunch of my friends chiming in here. We've got Ben Tyler, who's a flagger, actually flagging and communication chief for a few different SCCA regions, checking in, and Ben letting everybody know that I am not responsible for the rain at Carolina Motorsports Park last weekend. We've got Andrew Wozencroft, Spec Miata racer from out on the West Coast, San Francisco region, checking in. Good to see Andrew. Thanks for joining us. We've got Silly Wonka joining in as well. Thank you. And I think we've even got some folks that have joined in from across the pond. We've got Richard Moxley, who's checking in from the UK. I want to thank all of our associate producers for joining in here as we've got our Spec Miata drivers on track, and they've now finished their outlap, Josh, and they're starting their first flying laps.
Yeah, as of right now, Matt Morin, number 122, has a lap time of about 2:29.079. Now let's look also at what the class record is for this group, just to keep in mind, and that is a 2:15.414. Not completely out of the realm of possibility, but I would say with track conditions right now, unlikely at best.
All right, we've got a latecomer to the field, driver the blue number 108. That's Jordan Rick Segrini out of Boca Raton, Florida. And well, I know Jordan. I've called a number of his races on YouTube, and he is just now heading out on the track, starting his outlap. And we saw a number of drivers here early on sticking with the draft. We've got a group that has, I believe, they are getting ready to complete their first flying lap with Danny Stain and Chuck McTudis, both working for OPM Autosports, working together. And I believe they've got a train of 3 or 4 cars back behind them as well, as they are, I believe that is the group right now you're watching coming out of turn number 9, that first group out of turn number 9. We can also see just ahead of them Nick Bruni working together with David Henderson, the two Washington, D.C. Area drivers. Again, Bruni, your reigning national champion in Spec Miata, having taken that win at Virginia International Raceway this past fall. And now going up to the top of the leaderboard here, having crossed the line, Danny Stain sets a qualifying time of 2:17.180. That is still 2 seconds off of Frankie Barroso's qualifying times from this morning. Only 14 thousandths of a second off of that is Chuck McTudis. Again, those two drivers were just locked nose to tail, Josh, mere millimeters apart. Chris Cuifo at a 2:17.204, and then Michael Tinnis, fourth fastest, at a 2:17.539. Frankie Barroso, who was your fastest driver this morning, a 2:19.065, currently fifth fastest on track.
And we're consistently looking at 2:17s, at least in the top 4 or 5 now. It'd be nice to see somebody dip into the 16s, which is probably going to be likely since, as said, Danny Steen has gotten a 2:17.180 that time by. So that's pretty close to getting a 2:16 around here. But we'll see what the track conditions will allow them to do, because remember, these are Mazda Miatas, not the fastest cars out there.
Yeah, but they may not be the fastest things, but when they use the draft and as momentum cars. Oh, and we've got a car off going into what's known as the chute over at turn 6, and there you go. He's just now getting back underway. We'll try and get the car number there, and we'll get that in just a moment. And it was the 07 machine, and I think that we might actually be able to starting with this event, possibly be able to get a replay and exactly see what happened here, and we'll check it out as hopefully he can come down through the chute. Here he comes.
Oh, looks like he just overcooked it going in there, and that would be David Ciuffo, it looks like, the 07 machine.
Yeah, and so that was a replay, something new for those of you watching us, have been watching and following us all season long. We do have the ability with a couple of our cameras here at the track to give you a replay of the action. And yeah, it looks like he just could not get the car turned down from the outside, and the car just pushed off into the grass, and then all she wrote was that tire wall right to the outside.
And maybe he just didn't have his brake bias adjusted enough to, add a little bit more.
There we go, and it looks like some folks in the chat are pretty darn happy. Jonathan Wickert and Ryan Martin, technology, says Ryan Martin in the chat. Thank you. All right, and
we have a new top time right now out of Chris Ciuffo out of Livonia, New York, now with a 2:16.736. It's almost like I called it. And then McTudis has a 2:16.759. And then Steen again has gotten a 2:16.772. Yeah,
13 thousandths of a second back instead of 14 thousandths that time. So maybe he got a little bit closer to the bumper there, but very, very close. Now, again, remember the bogey time for pole. Frankie Barroso this morning, a 2:15.282 here in Spec Miata. And you can see there on the left-hand side of your screen, we've got our timing pylon, so you can get an idea of where our drivers stand. And we are going to a black flag conditions here, and we're trying to see what the issue may be and where it may be on track. But we're going to be bringing all of our Spec Miatas onto the pit lane.
It sounds like, and I'm guessing this is from that incident with Ciuffo, that a belt was broken on the tire barrier, and they need to go out and fix that, because if one Miata can find it, well,
many more can as well.
Especially since this is a momentum category, and you're usually on the bumper of somebody. So this will give a nice break to cool things down a little bit, engine and such, but I wouldn't say the drivers would be cooling down much either.
At these temps, the longer they sit on that pit lane, they're not going to like it. Now, remember, under black flag conditions, the clock does keep running. These are 25-minute sessions, and we're only 10 minutes in, but I think things are going to take a little longer because we've got at least 2 drivers, apparently, that did not see the black flag, and they are still on. They actually passed the entrance to the pit lane, and so they are still moving along. And so let's do this. Let's do this very quickly here. Let's run down our top 10, where, as you mentioned, Chris Ciuffo Josh is your fastest driver on track, a 2:16.738 with Chuck McTudis at a 2:16.759, a gap of 21 thousandths of a second. Danny Stain, 13 thousandths back from there, only 34 thousandths off of having the fastest lap in the session. Brian Henderson in the number 97 machine out of Fredericksburg, Virginia, and he's started on the front row at a few Super Tours, typically at Virginia International Raceway, but good to see Brian here after a good portion of the season off last year in that number 97 machine. He's in the top 5, and then Nick Bruni, who is working with Brian here on track this weekend. Nick is your 5th fastest driver at a 2:17 flat. Then Michael Tinnis, Nate Cicero, Rafe Abdullahi, who I'm a little surprised I didn't see Rafe at New Jersey Motorsports Park this past weekend, but he is a master there. He's out of South Salem, New York, driving the number 13 machine. Christian Sarnecki, 9th. Matthew Dirks, 10th. And so let's do this since we've got a little bit of time. First, let me make a first call to the grid for our next group, and then Josh, we'll get our break out of the way for this session. Attention in the paddock, first call to the grid for race group number 3. That's Touring 2, Touring 3, and Touring 4. Please start heading to the grid. Your qualifying session is next. Race group 3, T2, T3, and T4. Please head to the grid. And so let's take that break. Let's thank some of our partners and sponsors that are bringing you the 2023 Hoosier Racing Tire SCCA Super Tour live from Watkins Glen International. We'll be right back.
Ready for a new race trailer? Bravo Trailers is the exclusive trailer partner of the SCCA. Owned by longtime SCCA racers, Bravo Trailers work better, load easier, and tow better because we build them with racers in mind. Visit bravotrailers.com to see your new trailer in aluminum or steel.
For more than 100 years, Sunoco, SCCA's official fuel partner since 2001, has been fueling victories both on and off the track, which is why Sunoco has trusted to fuel over 50 series of racing, driving, and winning, including the SCCA National Championship runoffs, SCCA Pro Racing, Trans Am, NHRA, and NASCAR. To find race gas near you, visit SunocoRaceFuels.com or call Sunoco at 800-RACE-GAS.
Get more bang for your buck at SummitRacing.com. Choose from millions of in-stock parts from over 1,500 name brands, parts for racing, street performance, trucks, plus tools, accessories, and more.
For over 25 years, championship-winning drivers and teams have demanded Hawk Performance Motorsports brake pads. Now you can have their advanced technology on your daily car, truck, or SUV with Hawk Performance Street products. With the improved HP Plus pad for that hybrid street and track feel, or Super Duty pads for tow vehicles, their all-new ER1 brake pad designed to take on even the longest race, and their all-new high-performance brake fluid, Hawk has all of your braking needs covered. Visit HawkPerformance.com and like them on Facebook or Instagram to learn more about the Hawk Performance Advantage. Hawk Performance, what's stopping you?
And we're back here at Watkins Glen International, the 2023 Hoosier Racing Tire SCCA Super Tour. I'm Gregg Ginsberg, along with Josh Ashby. Josh, again, thank you for joining us here today. And Josh is going to be helping us out all weekend long. Josh works at the International Motor Racing Research Center. Did I get it right this time?
Yes, you did, and you get a whole quarter for doing it.
That's right, the IMRRC, based here in Watkins Glen, New York. It is the home of the Sports Car Club of America's archives and so much more. Right now, we're, again, under black flag conditions here at the Glen. You can see on track, this is, we put it right down at the bottom of the screen, turn 6. This is the chute. This is the entrance to the boot.
Just out of the laces is what I call it. You know, if we're going with the boot theme, call it just out of the laces or the tongue of the boot, but that doesn't sound right. But yes, it was confirmed that, I'm betting from the CFO incident that the belt came down a little bit, and they just want to make sure that gets fixed. No heavy hit or anything, just enough to nudge the tires a little bit. And with just about 9 minutes and 30 seconds left in this session, You know, if I were a driver, I would be thinking about where I might be able to find that extra 1,000th.
Sure.
And now also with the heat, your tires are probably going to stay warm, but your engine might be a little cooler now than it was at full thing.
Sure.
I'm thinking we're going to see some spec Miata equivalent of Hail Marys being done qualifying times, not as in move-wise. That won't happen at least until tomorrow during their race. What do you think, Greg?
I think that's definitely the case. Let's do this real quick because director Zach has his new replay tool. And although we can't do the telestrations here on screen, we want to take a look. I think he's got queued up, and we're hopefully going to see this in slow motion exactly where this car hit the wall right there. Well, you can see it nosed right in, and apparently the bands that hold those tires together had
Zach,
split.
if you can somehow circle right off the rear there, that tire band, you can see it is indeed adjusted. And I hate to say this for all those sim racers out there. Usually what you say when that happens is, I've got it, I've got it, I've got it. Oh, no, you don't. Maybe Mike Collins can decide to chime in and say whether he can.
Meathead Mike Collins was part of a much larger incident that I can remember years ago over at the bus stop that I think involved Danny Stain as well.
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
I remember that one, too. I had just brought my father up to that, and I was saying, hey, these are the guys to watch. And, yeah, we had a camera there that weekend. Yeah, that was fun to watch. But, yes, so right now, as it stands, with 7 minutes and 21 seconds roughly, it is still Chris Ciofo with a 2:16.738. Now, that is a little slower than the provisional time this morning, Greg. Is that correct? You've got the results up?
Yeah,
in front of you?
absolutely. The provisional poll time, 2:15.282 from this morning. So still about 1.5 seconds off of the fastest times for this morning. And we have all of our drivers currently lined up on the pit lane, still waiting for word from race control. We can see now Danny Stain has decided that it is not worth for him to go back out on track. He is heading back to the paddock and impound. Looks like we have another machine that's gone back, and that is actually Chris Ciofo, our fastest driver here in the session, has decided to head back into the paddock as well.
Yeah, and right now it's up to the drivers, obviously, about whether they want to go back out for this, and we'll see if they have time. It does appear that the EV vehicles have just finished. Thank you very much, Zach, for bringing that up. They are now have cleared the scene and are heading back to their home bases. So we've got a 1-minute call to cars back on the grid. So everybody's favorite little sports car, since the MG, the British-built Mazda Miata. Oh, wait a minute, that doesn't sound right. Will be coming up, ready to go here, and we will see. I'm betting some very interesting drafting going on, going down the back straightaway and everywhere they can. And here we go with 5 minutes and 17 seconds left. Cars are being released, and if I'm right, the first 3 cars that are nose to tail are all out of the Krug Speed SCCA racing team. So that's going to be an interesting little get together there to see what they can do. But yeah, I think this is going to be very, very interesting.
All right, so we've got our drivers heading back out on track, and we've got just about 5 minutes left to go here on the clock. Real quick, Josh, let me make another call to the grid for our next group. Attention in the paddock, attention in the paddock. Second call to the grid for race group number 3. That's Touring 2, Touring 3, and Touring 4. Please head to the grid. Your qualifying session is next. Race group number 3, T2, T3, T4. Please head to the grid now. All right, and so, we were talking about the engines cooling down, obviously, and I think as these machines were sitting on the pit lane for an extended period of time, probably a little bit of time for those Hoosier SM 7.5 spec tires that all these drivers are running to also, I think, probably drop a couple pounds in pressure that they are going to at least need maybe a lap to a lap and a half to get them back up to peak speed. But obviously, we had some folks right at the front of the field that either they didn't think they were going to get any faster and might not, and didn't think they would be able to eclipse that time that Frankie Barroso put in, or perhaps it was a question of they also maybe felt safe that some of the drivers behind them would not be able to best their times either. And so if we take a look at it right now, with the 216 738 that Guifo put in, that actually does not match his times from this morning. He was the fifth fastest driver this morning, where he turned in a 2:15 797, almost a full second faster than he ran. Danny Stain was at a 2:15.8. So again, none of the drivers here, at least at the front of the field, getting close to where they were earlier today. As we've got our drivers now completing their out lap with just under 3 minutes remaining on the clock. So these drivers, they should be able to get in, Josh, 2 flying laps.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm thinking, about 2 flying laps here around Watkins Glen and the Mazda Miata. I can't think of a better way to spend a Friday here. And as we see coming down, I thought it was the husband and wife team of Gregg and Amy Mills doing drafting, but no, it's Amy and somebody else going down through turn number 1 right now. Of course, the best way to tell the difference between those 2 cars, prepared by Nick Leveroni's Flat Out Motorsports shop, is Whit has a circuit board stencil painted on the top of his roof, while Amy has the zebra print. And of course, she is always known to have inflatable zebras near her car.
Just for what type of occasion? Just for any occasion?
I think she did it at a Sebring party one time, but I'm not 100% sure.
All right, it looks like we've got a car off. There we go. It's right in front of the camera right now. The 67 machine had some issues going through the bus stop, so we are under local caution there, and I believe we've also got something going on we had something at turn 9 as well. But the 67 car, and all of a sudden I'm searching for which driver that is in the 67. This is what happens when you have 43 cars that are out for qualifying here, Josh.
Well, I can tell you it's distinctive Lotus painting on it. Livery, excuse me, that's the word I was searching for.
And, it's David Nagler. I believe, David Nagler, who was qualified 33rd coming into the session today. He's out of Chester, New York, racing one of the Quick Speed machines. And
that would probably be why I recognize it.
Yeah, and so, I mean, that's probably going to affect a number of drivers who are coming through the bus stop after him on one of what are going to be only 2 flying laps that they would likely get, as we now have just about 30 seconds remaining on the clock here in Spec Miata qualifying time. Again, our Spec Miata racers, they are scheduled to go out for their 25-minute race tomorrow morning, just before 11 o'clock, 10:55 a.m. is the scheduled start time.
Greg, do you think we should give the next group their final call?
Well, now that the checkered flag is coming out, I figure we'll get through the session here. We'll run down the next group, and we will definitely do that, as we still have a little bit of time before that next group is going to be on track. So first driver to come across the line and take the checkered flag was, I believe, actually that 67 machine. Now we've got Nick Bruni and David Henderson. They come across the line, and Bruni does not, probably not David Henderson, that's Brian's father, who's out on track as well. Brian Henderson and Nick Bruni working together. They end up the session 4th and 5th fastest in the session, 91 thousandths of a second separating them. So here we go as our final drivers are crossing the line and knowing who's out on track still at the moment here. Chris Suifo with again a 2:16.738. He brought the car behind the wall when that black flag came out. Chuck McTudis at a 2:16.759. Danny Stain at a 2:16.772, and both of those drivers called it quits at the black flag. Brian Henderson and Nick Bruni stay out on track. Best that they can do is move up to 4th and 5th fastest at a 2:17.001 and a .092 respectively. Elvin Goulart moves up to 6th fastest. He turns in his fastest lap the last time by, a 2:17.533. Michael Tinnis, Travis Wiley, Nate Cicero, and Sean Noonan, your top 10. And again, as we're seeing here, most of our drivers are going to be basing their lap times, assuming those. And I've been having a little conversation offline. There's maybe a little bit of a controversy going on right now around track limits, but. Assuming those qualifying 1 times hold, Frankie Barroso should be your pole sitter tomorrow morning when these drivers go out for their first of 2 races this weekend. Again, at 10:55 a.m. tomorrow's the start time. Travis Wiley, 2nd fastest. He should be starting on the outside of the front row. Michael Tinnis, Chuck McTudis, row 2. Chris Suifo, Danny Stain, row 3. Brian Henderson and Nick Bruni starting together in row 4. Christian Sarnecki and Elvin Goulart would make up the 5th row, rounding out the top 10 again out of 43 cars qualifying over the course of the day today. So let's do this, Josh. Let's make that final call to the grid for our next group. Attention in the paddock. Attention in the paddock. Final call to the grid for race group number 3, Touring 2, Touring 3, and Touring 4. Your qualifying session is next. Touring 2, Touring 3, and Touring 4. Your qualifying session is next. Please head to the grid if you haven't done so already. And so let's take a quick break, Josh. And when we come back, we will bring you more qualifying action here from Watkins Glen International, where you are watching the 2023 Hoosier Racing Tire SCCA Super Tour. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody, to Watkins Glen International and the 2023 Hoosier Racing Tire SCCA Super Tour. I'm Gregg Ginsberg, along with Josh Ashby, bringing you not quite the remainder of qualifying. We're going to have a few qualifying sessions to wrap up tomorrow morning, but a good portion of it here today. And to give you a highlight of the schedule, we're going to be going this group here, our touring cars, which are heading off the pit lane right now and heading on track for their 25-minute qualifying session. And then we'll have 2 more qualifying sessions today. We're going to have our production category drivers, GT Light and B-Spec. They'll be up next. And then we're going to round out the afternoon with Spec Racer Ford qualifying. And tomorrow morning, we've got 3 groups of qualifying, and then we go racing. On-track action will start tomorrow morning at 8:30 a.m., our first race, which is going to be Formula 600, Formula F, and Formula V, scheduled to start right around 10:15 a.m. tomorrow. So, Josh, good day of qualifying so far. What we're seeing this afternoon, to a large extent, it's a small sample size at this point, only two run groups, but we're seeing that for the most part, our drivers not able to improve upon the times that they set earlier today in qualifying. Let's quickly take a look at how we rounded things out, how we finished things up with this group, Touring 2, Touring 3, and Touring 4. This morning, our fastest drivers on track, actually our 4 fastest drivers, were all Touring 2 machines, and they were, for the most part, some Phoenix Performance machines, it looks like. Kurt Resitano from Phoenixville, Pennsylvania, driving his Phoenix Performance Ford Mustang, was our fastest driver. That is a T2 machine. He turned in a 2:03.463. John Heinrichsey in the Hoosier Hawk Mobile Cadillac CT4 Blackwing. That machine, and that's a car that he debuted at Sebring International Raceway at the debut of the 2023 Hoosier Racing Tire SCCA Super Tour. Multi-time national champion John Heinrichsey, second fastest, 2:05.957. So what, about 2.5 seconds separating those two drivers. Brian LaCroix and Preston Calvert, also in T2 machines, 3rd and 4th fastest. In Touring 3, Jared Lendrum in the number 28 Subaru STI was your fastest driver in the class. He's out of Queensbury, New York, and he turned in a 2:11.571. Dan March in his BMW 330i. He's out of Bowling Springs, Pennsylvania, a 2:11.597. So only 26 thousandths of a second off of provisional pole in T3. And then we've had former national champion Marshall Mast in the number 135 Phoenix Performance Toyota 86. Marshall turned in a 2:11.808. So only about 2/10 off of the first 2 drivers there. And then if we take a look at T4, Nick Leveroni in the number 186 Subaru BRZ. This is the car that he took the national championship in the class back in 2019 at Virginia International Raceway. He puts down 2:13.672, does the Mendon, Massachusetts native Aiden Rose from Staatsburg, New York, in a NC recent Mazda MX-5, we'll call it, is your second fastest driver. Turns in a 2:14.041, so a little bit less than 4/10 of a second off Leveroni's times. And then our 3rd fastest driver, Felix Bordat. Pardon me, let me get this right. You know what? I missed a T4 driver, and I missed one by a lot. Nick Leveroni, and my apologies to this person. Nick Leveroni, our 2nd fastest T4 driver, because I should have looked much further up the order. Mark Cephalo, driving the number 00 Planet Miata Mazda MX-5, is your provisional pole sitter in T4. A 2:13.123, so almost half second clear of Nick Leveroni. Sorry there, Mark. And we've been seeing a lot of Mark and Nick of late. Both drivers were out on the West Coast for the last 2 rounds of the Super Tour for Thunder Hill Raceway Park as well as Portland International Raceway, and we gave them a whole 2 weeks to come back east, Josh.
Yeah, and if anybody can do it, certainly Nick Leveroni can do that. And as it stands right now, our fast time is Brian LaCroix in his Corvette, and that is in T2 with a 206.647. And the class record for T2 at this point is 204.616. Granted, the class records are just to keep in mind, just, kind of average of, yeah, they're going pretty good, or, okay, they're a little off of what is expected. Now, the class record for T3 is 209.434, and T4 is a 213.444. Once again, these are just numbers to keep in the back of your head as you're comparing them to what's going on out there right now, which I would not say today is an ideal condition for any sort of track record, especially this afternoon, because once again, as we've noted earlier this morning, it is rather warm here, very humid, just not conducive to good, fast lap times, as much as maybe slightly colder or overcast might be.
All right, as we're and that is certainly affecting lap times as we watch now John Heinrichs in that CT4 Blackwing come through the bus stop, and or the inner loop, as it may be here. And so LaCroix, who was our fastest driver, or is our fastest driver currently, as you mentioned, Josh, with the 206.647. He was our third fastest driver overall this morning, and he was at the time about 0.6 of a second faster, ran an 0.33. Preston Calvert, and great to see the doctor back out in that number 77 Phoenix Performance Ford Mustang. Missed him out there for a couple of years. A 206.959 currently his fastest lap. And talk about consistent, Brian, or did I say Brian? Josh, he ran a 206.961, so only 0.02 of a second off of what he ran this morning.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Of course, when we're talking about the Dr. Preston Calvert, he a longtime driver with the Aqualante and Phoenix Performance Stables. He also, at one point, was driving in World Challenge with the Panos team, the Abruzzi, which looked about as good as the name. But I'm just going to leave that there. But it's good to see him back here at Watkins Glen. And of course, as you said, moving up into second on the time shots. Right now, third is T3, and that's Marcel Mast in his Toyota GT86 with a 211.059. And we are currently just under 8 minutes 30 seconds. Well, now that we said that, Kurt Rezentano decides that he wants to get in the game too with a 203.710. How does that compare to his time this morning?
He's getting pretty close. This morning he ran a 203.463, so about 0.3 off of where he was earlier. Now we should also mention that Jonathan Neudorf is now our fastest of T4 drivers, a 212.817 the time for him, and that is your new bogey time in T4. Earlier today, Mark Cephalo turned in a 213.123. So we're looking now at just about 0.4 of a second to the good for Mr. Neudorf, driver of the Mazda Miata out of Scottsdale, Arizona. As we take a look here a little bit further back in the field in T4, Jaden Lander in the number 04 Mazda MX-5, he just puts down a 213 flat, and to be more specific, 213.015. And so he is now going to eclipse the time that Mark Cephalo put in as well. Now, Lander did not set a time in qualifying this morning. We did not have Neudorf nor Lander set times this morning. So this being their first time out, and they're already showing their mettle here early on.
Also, while we were saying, while you were talking, Brian LaCroix came back up into second on the time shots with a 206.570. And going back to what you're saying about Jaden Lander, I'm not surprised one bit. He is also been driving in the World Challenge, or SRO, excuse me. I still have been calling it World Challenge.
Yeah, just don't say Pirelli. They still drive on Pirellis.
I won't say that. But has been running with the Krug Speed team with Anthony Garacci, who we'll see later in his Lotus. And last year put on a heck of a show, basically using his rear bumper cover as a giant air brake throughout most of the race. But very talented kid and is definitely going to go somewhere. No, I'm not trying to suck up to Alex there, his team owner there. I'm not going to try and suck up to them on the PA here, but yeah, it looks like we're going to go pretty good here with a 203.710 as our fast time by Kurt Resentano.
And real quick, Josh, a quick update there is Resentano is now on the pit lane, and he's right back behind John Heinrichsey. Now, here's I said that Heinrichsey was going out with the CT4 Blackwing, the T2 machine. He is actually out right now in his Scion FRS machine, the T4 car. So the 135 car now heading back to the pit lane. At least I believe, before I say something incredibly foolish, I believe that, no, I'm sorry,
that's
the 135, that's Marshall Mast. I'm sorry, I thought that was, I saw the black with yellow there, and I thought it was Heinrichsey,
yeah.
but no, indeed, that is Marshall Mast. And so Mast, with a fast time, his fast time in the books of 2:11.059, currently your second fastest driver in this session in T3. He takes his car behind the wall.
And unofficially also breaks the track record, if I'm not mistaken, because the track record before this session was a 204.616. And Kurt Resentano has most definitely broken that with a 203.710.
All right, Josh, so let's make a call to the grid for our next group, and then we'll take a quick little break. Attention in the paddock, attention in the paddock. First call to the grid for race group number 4. That's small bore and B-Spec, E production, F production, H production, GT Light, B-Spec drivers. Please head to the grid. Your qualifying session is next. Race group number 4, please head to the grid. And so, Josh, let's take that quick break, and when we come back, we'll bring you qualifying action here in touring cars from Watkins Glen International, where you're watching the 2023 Hoosier Racing Tire SCCA Super Tour. We'll be right back.
For over 25 years, championship-winning drivers and teams have demanded Hawk Performance Motorsports brake pads. Now you can have their advanced technology on your daily car, truck, or SUV with Hawk Performance Street products. With the improved HP Plus pad for that hybrid street and track feel, or Super Duty pads for tow vehicles, their all-new ER1 brake pad designed to take on even the longest race, and their all-new high-performance brake fluid, Hawk has all of your braking needs covered. Visit hawkperformance.com and like them on Facebook or Instagram to learn more about the Hawk Performance Advantage. Hawk Performance, what's stopping you?
Tire Rack was established over 40 years ago by an SCCA member with a passion to find the right tires, wheels, brakes, and suspension products for racers and enthusiasts both on the street and on the track. As official tire retailer of Sports Car Club of America since 1995 and sponsor of the Runoffs Pole Award, along with the National Solo Program, Time Trials Nationals and National Tour, and Track Night in America, Tire Rack is proud to support the SCCA and its members as they go have fun with cars.
For more than 100 years, Sunoco, SCCA's official fuel partner since 2001, has been fueling victories both on and off the track, which is why Sunoco has trusted the fuel over 50 series of racing, driving, and winning, including the SCCA National Championship runoffs, SCCA Pro Racing, Trans Am, NHRA, and NASCAR. To find race gas near you, visit SunocoRaceFuels.com or call Sunoco at 800-RACE-GAS.
Shop anytime, anywhere with the Summit Racing app.
Mazza Vineyards is the exclusive sparkling wine for podium celebrations at the Hoosier Racing Tire SCCA Super Tour, SCCA Runoffs, and Tire Rack SCCA Pro Solo. Celebrate your race weekend with Mazza Vineyards and learn more at enjoymazza.com.
And welcome back to Watkins Glen International and the 2023 Hoosier Racing Tire SCCA Super Tour. I'm Gregg Ginsberg along with Josh Ashby, bringing you all the qualifying action here from WGI. And Josh, as we come back with just a little bit under 10 minutes remaining here in qualifying, we've had a number of drivers retire back behind the pit wall.
Yeah, we definitely have Jared Lendrum. Looks like he went behind the wall, and I think I saw Jaden Lander also going behind pit wall at this time. Yep, there he goes, right in front of our position here on top of the front stretch grandstands here, in case those of you want to visit. And also, here comes the 77 Phoenix prepared machine. That'll be the doctor, Preston Calvert. Looks like they're getting tire pressures done there to see what's going on. Well, and also looks like an ND Miata T2. That would be the 22 machine, which is Jeremy Fletcher.
Jeremy Fletcher, yes.
Has reported pit side. Looks like he's just going to go right behind the wall there. Also, BMW 3 Series, it looks like.
And I believe that's Dan Marsh.
Well, Dan's going to go back out on the track, it looks like.
Yeah. And Dan, currently your fastest T3 driver on track with a qualifying time of 2:11.020. He was your second fastest this morning. This morning ran a 2:11.597, and Jared Lendrum ran a 2:11.571. March again, currently your provisional pole sitter, now in Touring 3.
So now in qualifying with just about over 8 minutes left to play, we're seeing lots of guys and gals, coming in and like, okay, this is as much as I think I can get, and save it, heading back into the paddock to, save it for tomorrow.
Well, this time I've got it right. We do have the 35, not the 135, but the 35 Cadillac of John Heinrichsey. It is heading down the pit lane now, and I believe back behind the wall. We've got Preston Calvert's T2 Mustang on the pit lane. We also have, and I'm trying to get the number.
I think it's 56.
56 machine. Yeah, that's what it looks like. Felix Bordati in the T4 Toyota GR86 on the pit lane as well. And Calvert now, given the pace that he's running, looks like he's probably going to come back behind the wall. And I think Bordati, and indeed that is the black 56 machine of Bordati, I think going back behind the wall as well. As I think a lot of these drivers, much like we saw earlier, starting to give up on the chances of setting fast laps. Frank Seldorf, though, just turns in his best time in his T3 BMW M3, a 2:12.079, and that is good for, and actually he just crossed the stripe again, to improve upon that 2:12.079, good, probably 2:12.817. I'm sorry, good for fastest in T4 currently. And let's take a look. I'm sorry, that's Jonathan Neudorf. Let's look at Francis Seldorf. Seldorf, a 2:12.079, good for fourth in Touring 3 in his BMW M3.
And also Tom Aquilante of Tom Aquilante Racing is now reported back down the cold side, heading back to the paddock area in his red Catfish era Chevy Camaro, also out of Phoenixville, Pennsylvania.
And you'll notice there, if you take a look on our timing tower on the left-hand side of the screen, where we will break things down by class. Each class is color-coded. For example, T3, which is showing up right now in green, T4 in blue, yellow for the last remaining class, and then we will periodically give you a rundown with all of our drivers mixed together, as you can see right there, with the T2 cars in yellow up at the top, then our T3 cars, and then the T4 cars in blue, mixed in there amongst the T3 machines, with the gaps to the cars, or probably gap to the lead, listed as well. And so now with just under 5 minutes, Josh, let me make another call to the grid for our next group. Attention in the paddock, second call to the grid for race group number 4. Small bore, E production, F production, H production, GT light, and B-Spec drivers. Race group number 4, please head to the grid. Your qualifying session is next. As we're working our way through, I don't know how best to say this, but other than maybe a sleepy qualifying session here, Josh, again, as the drivers throughout these 3 sessions so far this afternoon just not finding the speed in the track that they saw earlier. It's actually warmed up even a little bit
with
since
the
we started.
exception of Kurt Resitano, of course,
yes,
who made us all look like fools when we said, I don't think it's going to be conducive to a track record. Well, he came in under the track record.
Yeah, exactly.
Making me look like a fool. But hey, those who can't announce.
So there is one driver who's finding time here, as we now have the 28 machine heading onto the pit lane.
And it looks like a Subaru STI. I'm betting that's going to be one of the Lendrums.
That is Jared Lendrum, who is on the pit lane, and his crew taking a look at. Well, actually, there's his crew behind over there at the pit wall, taking some tire pressure checks there, as we now have about 3 minutes left in the session. Yeah, but for the most part, Josh, as the temperatures have warmed up and we're now running right around 86, 87 degrees. It's gone up about even 2 degrees since we talked earlier and came on with our broadcast just after 2 p.m. So again, most of the drivers not finding the track conditions conducive to setting fast laps here, as this track's starting to get maybe a little bit greasy.
And of course, what's the very next group? It's going to be the small bore production cars, which are always fun to watch when it's a greasy track.
Indeed, and I'll tell you, just for those of you, I would recommend watching this next qualifying session, where we have 14 B-Spec cars that went out during the very first qualifying session, and the majority of them were in one big train all the way around this track for multiple laps. It was pretty neat to watch. I mean, it might as well have been a race, but that was the fastest way for these cars to make their way around, and to watch these little hatchbacks fight their way up through the S's,
and
use the draft.
It's amazing to see the growth of that class.
Oh,
of course, Frank Schwartz being one of the big guys in that class. I know at least 2 people who have rented cars from him, his art cars for the new BMW Minis, and those guys race pretty hard. Remember back when we had 2 or 3 of them to show up, and to have this many here on a day like this, it is going to be interesting to watch. Also, keep your eye on the GTL battle.
Yes.
Graham Fuller has been, last few years, has been pretty solid.
And that Honda CRX,
yeah,
absolutely.
Although James Gregorius has been doing pretty good the last couple years here. Hit or miss, but yeah, I'm looking forward to the next class and seeing this. Some good small bore stuff. Yeah.
Well, we'll have to see. We'll talk a little bit more about that as well. There is in H production. There's a driver that my announced partner for regional races, Brian Donati, and I saw run at New Jersey Motorsports Park, who made a very, very large impression on us. We'll talk about them in just a few moments as we take a look now, as we only have here we go, about actually closer to 25 seconds remaining on the clock here for our touring car qualifying session. And our touring car racers, T2, T3, and T4, they are scheduled to race tomorrow morning, scheduled to start right around 11:30, 11:35 this morning. Of course, all times Eastern. If you'd like to see some great touring car action, that will be the time to check in. But frankly, we'd love for you to join us when we go live tomorrow morning at 8:30 a.m., where we're going to wrap up qualifying. We'll have 3 qualifying sessions tomorrow morning, and then 8 races. As the checkered flag, we can see our starter there. He's pulled the checkered flag out of his little holster, and he's waving it out for the next driver to come by. I don't think there are many racers left on the racetrack.
Here comes one coming up out of the boot now. Now into turn 9. And it looks like one of the BMWs, 3 Series coming.
And I believe that might be the 44 machine coming up. Let's take a
red,
look.
black, and white.
Here we go, and coming across the line now and taking the checkered flag.
Machine.
Hey, I was right for the first time this session. I was right. That was David Orem, our first driver to take the checkered flag. Does not improve upon his times. Going to qualify for the moment. Looks like he is going to have the 9th fastest time in Touring 3. As we do have now, it looks as though, as we're watching here, coming through the toe of the boot and up that steep hill. We'll see him come over the rise and down into turn 8 over at the heel in just a moment. Here they come.
Looks like the second car in shot looks like Dina Weisberg. Yep, that's her car, all right. Berg Racing Stables out of Rochester, New York.
And moving over to a BMW this season after having run the NB Miatas for a number of years.
Yeah, she actually had to press gang that car last month for endurance racing series because the car they were planning on running wasn't as healthy as they thought.
All right, and it looks like you just saw it there coming off over at turn 9 and parking right underneath the Hoosier Super Tour logo. I believe that's the number 3 machine of Luis Goncalves there that has come to a stop. Yep, indeed it is. Just got confirmation from the corner. Driver of that white number 3 Scion FRS. He's out of Novi, Michigan, and looks like he is not going to be able to complete his last flying lap. So let's take a look now, as I believe all of our drivers, with the exception of Luis, have crossed the line. In Touring 2, our fastest driver, and as you mentioned, Josh, underneath the track record here, Kurt Resitano, driver of the number 137 Ford Mustang out of Phoenixville, Pennsylvania. Brian LaCroix in his Chevy Corvette out of Hyannis, Massachusetts, second fastest at a 206.570. Preston Calvert, his Ford Mustang, he's out of Potomac, Maryland, and he turned in a 206.740. In Touring 3, Dan March, our fastest driver in today's session, with a 211 flat with Marshall Mast. Well, here, let me be more specific, because I can say a 211 flat for both of these drivers. Dan March, a 211.020 with Marshall Mast, 39 thousandths of a second back at a 211.059, and then another 19 thousandths of a second back, Frank Seldorf, in his BMW M3. So really, really close running here in this afternoon session. Jeremy Fletcher was our 4th fastest T3 car, and then finally in T4, Jonathan Neudorf in his Mazda Miata fastest with a 212.817. He's out of Scottsdale, Arizona. Jaden Lander in his Mazda MX-5, a 213.015. That's just about 2/10 off of Neudorf's times. And then Aiden Rose, another 900ths, or probably 9/10 back from there in the number 46 Mazda Miata. All right, so Josh, let's do this. Let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll have our next qualifying session. But first, let me make a final call to the grid for them. I always forget that. Attention in the paddock. Final call to the grid for race group number 4. E production, F production, H production, GT Light, and B-Spec. Please head to the grid. Race group number 4, your qualifying session scheduled to start in just a few moments. So now, Josh, let's take a quick break. And when we come back, we will have that production and GT and B-Spec qualifying here from Watkins Glen, where you're watching the 2023 Hoosier Racing Tire SCCA Super Tour. We'll be right back.
Hoosier Racing Tire is proud to be the presenting sponsor of SCCA's Super Tour. Hoosier's mission is to be the dominant, customer-driven provider of tires to race teams domestically and internationally. Realizing Hoosier's existence and continued success is dependent upon how well we meet our customers' expectations by providing the safest, most reliable, high-quality race tires that put you in the winner's circle. For more information, see one of our trackside support personnel or the local Hoosier Tire racing dealer nearest you, or contact us at HoosierTire.com. Hoosier Racing Tires, truly designed for champions.
Mazza Vineyards is the exclusive sparkling wine for podium celebrations at the Hoosier Racing Tire SCCA Super Tour, SCCA Runoffs, and Tire Rack SCCA Pro Solo. Celebrate your race weekend with Mazza Vineyards and learn more at enjoymazza.com.
Tire Rack was established over 40 years ago by an SCCA member with a passion to find the right tires, wheels, brakes, and suspension products for racers and enthusiasts both on the street and on the track. As official tire retailer of Sports Car Club of America since 1995 and sponsor of the Runoffs Pole Award, along with the National Solo Program, Time Trials Nationals and National Tour, and Track Night in America, Tire Rack is proud to support the SCCA and its members as they go have fun with cars.
For more than 100 years, Sunoco, SCCA's official fuel partner since 2001, has been fueling victories both on and off the track, which is why Sunoco has trusted to fuel over 50 series of racing, driving, and winning, including the SCCA National Championship Runoffs, SCCA Pro Racing, Trans Am, NHRA, and NASCAR. To find race gas near you, visit SunocoRaceFuels.com or call Sunoco at 800-RACE-GAS.
And welcome back to Watkins Glen International and the home this weekend of the 2023 Hoosier Racing Tire SCCA Super Tour. I'm Gregg Ginsberg along with Josh Ashby, and we've got our production category cars heading out on track along with the smallest of our GT classes, GT Lights, as well as B-Spec, and you see them now making their way down the pit lane to start their out laps. So Josh, let's quickly take a look back at how things played out this morning in this group's first qualifying session. And we've heard that likely our fastest E-production and fastest F-production drivers are likely keeping their cars back in the paddock and not coming out for this qualifying session. But I think they can feel relatively safe based on the qualifying times that they set this morning. So we'll start off with E-production, and your fastest driver overall in the morning qualifying session, that was John Hainsworth out of is it Vinland or probably Vineland, New Jersey, turned in a 207.943. That was 6.5 seconds clear of Aaron Johnson in his Honda S2000 out of Lodi, Ohio. And again, with that 6.5 seconds, and seeing that most drivers aren't getting any faster in this afternoon qualifying series of sessions, probably a safe bet to save the equipment for the race tomorrow. Dan Thiel was your third fastest driver in his Mazda Miata. In F production, Charlie Campbell, same story. He ran a 210.845 in this morning's qualifying session. The F production driver was our second fastest racer overall, and he finished up the session with over an 8.5 second margin back to David Colby in his Acura Integra. Colby's second fastest in F production, then Mark McAllister and Spike Bering as well. In GT Light, Wilson Wright in his Nissan Sentra, the Stockbridge, Massachusetts native, turned in a 212.416. That was almost 4.5 seconds clear of Peter Tonelli's Mazda Miata with Graham Fuller, our third fastest driver. About 4 seconds from Wright to Tonelli, another 4 back to Fuller. And then in H production, a little bit closer here, Josh, as Rick Benazik, driver of the number 11 Honda Civic out of Farmingdale, New York, turned in a 220.228. That was only 1.1 seconds clear of Amber Stevenson, who is driving a Toyota Yaris this weekend. She's out in Garnet Valley, Pennsylvania. I saw her, my announcing partner, we were at New Jersey Motorsports Park's Lightning Circuit last weekend for a regional race, and not only was she head and shoulders above the H production field, she was actually mixing things up with some of the F production and E production racers as well. Very, very quick in that Toyota Yaris. Frank Schwartz, who you just spoke about a few moments ago, not out this morning in a B-Spec Mini. He was actually running in his H production Mini. The Davisburg, Michigan native turned in a 222.385, and so just about a second off of Amber Stevenson and about 2.1 seconds off of Rick Benazik's pole. We've got Brian Downey, Tom Broering, as well as Stephanie Funk out there as well for what is a 6-car H production field. And then finally in B-Spec, where we had 12 drivers in set qualifying times this morning. I believe there are 14 of them qualified. Steve Introne, who is our reigning national champion in the class out of Windham, New Hampshire, he set the bar at 225.77. Stuart Black out of Greensboro, North Carolina, in his Chevy Sonic, 1.7 seconds off the times. And then Milos Milosevic in his Mini Cooper, a 227.592. So about 1.8 seconds off of Introne's provisional pole time, and only a couple hundredths, actually about 0.05 of a second off of Stuart Black's second fastest time there. Rich Roman, who was Steve Introne's partner at the runoffs this past year at Virginia International Raceway, after having some towing issues. And you know, the best racing stories, I'm convinced, are always the towing stories, Josh, not necessarily what happened on track. But Rich Roman got here after having a little bit of strife. The Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania racer who finished second at the runoffs to Introne was your fourth fastest driver on track, and he was only 0.09 of a second out of third. So very close running there in B-Spec. And I think, as we mentioned, and we're watching drivers come out of B-Spec drivers come out of turn 10 and go into the final corner at turn 11. A lot of the B-Spec drivers already staying in very close quarters using the draft to try and find time here. And I did it again. I forgot to unmute you. I'm sorry, Josh.
Was it something I didn't say? So right now our top 3 drivers are all GTL drivers. Wilson Wright, James Gregorius in his RX-7, and then Peter Tonelli in his Mazda Miata are 1, 2, and 3. Now Wright is pulled a 212.742. James out of Lakeville, New York, in that blue and white RX-7, pulled a 214.885, which, while I'm talking times, let's look at the overall records for this particular group. E production is a 206.478, and then F production is a 208.413. H production is a 217.235. GTL is a 208.961, and then B-Spec is a 223.7. Once again, these are just comparative times. With a big asterisk, I say that I doubt we're going to see anything that low.
Well, we'll see here, Josh. Now, one driver on his first flying lap having some issues, a little bit off speed. The number 35 F production Mazda Miata. That was Spike Benning out of Vienna, Virginia, out of the Washington, D.C. area. He's brought the car down the pit lane, and from the looks of it, he's going to be going right back to the paddock. So it looks like his qualifying session ends with an outlap and 3/4 of a flying lap. Now, as we're taking a look, and as the field is here starting to get some heat in the tires and starting to get things warmed up, I was going back to, again, our associate producers, the folks in the chat here, and Gabe Fairbach, who was on track earlier today in a Formula Enterprises 2 machine. He was just talking about his qualifying session, his session this morning here, and he is actually going to have his second qualifying session tomorrow morning. But he was saying at about 11 a.m. the track was incredibly greasy and getting some pretty, he called them gnarly 4-wheel drifts through the carousel in his Formula car. And that's with a modicum of aero downforce with the side pods and the wings on that FE2 machine. You can imagine what a tin top is going to be able to do or not do with, for example, like our B-Spec cars without some of those aerodynamic aids.
It also looks like that the British Leyland Mini GTL car has pulled off right now. I'm trying to find a number for you.
And that is likely, that is Chris Copley in the 03 machine, the silver Mini there. And I've seen him on track quite a bit. It appears that he has pulled that car off. And it appears to be out of harm's way right now. I should also mention Graham Fuller in GT Light did not bring his CRX out for qualifying.
Oh, there he goes. The 03 is now running again. For a minute there, I thought we had another British Leyland strike on the cold side of pit road, but now the golf cart is actually almost looked like it was trying to draft the Mini, but the golf cart was just a little too big.
And maybe a little too fast. But Chris Copley's got his car behind the wall. He's heading back to the paddock. And so his session ends also after just an outlap. So let's take a look at where we are now as we're just a little bit under 10 minutes into this 25-minute qualifying session. In H production, Rick Benazik out of Farmingdale, New York, your fastest driver on course with a qualifying time of 2:19.649. And that is underneath what he ran this morning. Josh, this morning ran a 2:20.228, where he was also the fastest driver in the class. Amber Stevenson at 2:23.778. It's almost 5 seconds now separating those two drivers. Stevenson about 2 seconds off of her fastest time from this morning. In GT Light, Wilson Wright just sets the fastest lap overall with a 2:12.605. And Peter Tonelli at a 2:17.0, about 4.6 seconds off of Wright's times. Now, earlier today, Wright ran a 2:12.416, so still about 15 hundredths of a second off of where he was earlier today. If we go over and jump over to F production, now we know that our provisional pole sitter in F production decided to keep the car back behind the wall. Mark McAllister is your fastest driver on track currently at 2:17.559. And good for him. That is 3 seconds faster than he ran this morning. So he has picked up quite a bit of time. I should also mention that also eclipses David Colby, who is our second fastest F production racer today. But the bogey time still stands at a 2:10.845, set by Charlie Campbell this morning. Then if we take a look at E production, again, John Hainsworth decided to stay behind the wall. So did Aaron Johnson. And so David Thiel, who was our third fastest driver in the class this morning, where he ran a 2:22.79. He's actually still trying to get to that. He's at a 2:23 and change. And so why don't we, Josh, why don't we take a look at where B-Spec stands? Because, again, 12 drivers out on course, and the one thing that I'm seeing from the B-Spec drivers is at least they're resetting their fast laps of the session, essentially every lap they turn here, with intro now going going down to a 2:26.171, and it's about 4/10 of a second off of where he was this morning.
Yeah, it looks like a lot of the B-Spec field right now is in that 226, 227 range. Not as fast as it was this morning, but then again, track conditions have changed. So, I doubt they're going to be able to get much faster. And it looks like the 13 Miata is in, I believe that's an F production.
That's McAllister. That is our fastest F production machine. All right, and so if we go over to B-Spec there, so we've got Introne and Rich Roman, who I think have hooked up and they're working the draft together. Currently 22 hundredths of a second separating those two machines, with David Rosenblum in his Ford Fiesta, currently our third fastest, 1.1 seconds off of Introne's time. So let's do this, because we're just about halfway through this qualifying session. Josh, let's make a first call to the grid for our next group, and then take a quick little break. Attention in the paddock, first call to the grid for race group number 5, Spec Racer Ford Gen 3. Please start heading to the grid. Your qualifying session is next. Race group number 5, Spec Racer Ford Gen 3. Please head to the grid. And so with that, let's take a quick little break. And thanks to our partners and sponsors that are bringing you the 2023 Hoosier Racing Tire SCCA Super Tour. And we'll be back with more qualifying action from Watkins Glen in just a moment.
Hagerty is the official and exclusive insurance partner for the Sports Car Club of America. Hagerty provides affordable off-track insurance protection for motorsports vehicles while in the paddock, in transit, in storage, and at the shop. They provide guaranteed value coverage and even have protection for your trailers. SCCA members can save 5% on insurance through Hagerty. Learn more at Hagerty.com. Hagerty, let's drive together.
Tire Rack was established over 40 years ago by an SCCA member with a passion to find the right tires, wheels, brakes, and suspension products for racers and enthusiasts both on the street and on the track. As official tire retailer of Sports Car Club of America since 1995 and sponsor of the Runoffs Pole Award, along with the National Solo Program, Time Trials Nationals and National Tour, and Track Night in America, Tire Rack is proud to support the SCCA and its members as they go have fun with cars.
For over 25 years, championship-winning drivers and teams have demanded Hawk Performance Motorsports brake pads. Now you can have their advanced technology on your daily car, truck, or SUV with Hawk Performance Street products. With the improved HP Plus pad for that hybrid street and track feel, or Super Duty pads for tow vehicles, their all-new ER1 brake pad designed to take on even the longest race, and their all-new high-performance brake fluid, Hawk has all of your braking needs covered. Visit hawkperformance.com and like them on Facebook or Instagram to learn more about the Hawk Performance Advantage. Hawk Performance, what's stopping you?
Winning takes work. Getting parts is easy. SummitRacing.com.
For more than 100 years, Sunoco, SCCA's official fuel partner since 2001, has been fueling victories both on and off the track, which is why Sunoco has trusted the fuel over 50 series of racing, driving, and winning, including the SCCA National Championship runoffs, SCCA Pro Racing, Trans Am, NHRA, and NASCAR. To find race gas near you, visit SunocoRaceFuels.com or call Sunoco at 800-RACE-GAS.
And welcome back to Watkins Glen International in the 2023 Hoosier Racing Tire SCCA Super Tour. I'm Gregg Ginsberg along with Josh Ashby, whose mic I just now unmuted.
Woohoo!
There we go. And you are watching qualifying, and that is great. A great shot, as we just saw going down the front straight. The two red minis locked together. That is Steve Introne and Rich Roman, who finished this past year's national championship runoffs nose to tail. As Rich Roman was the faithful tail gunner for Steve Introne, as they had worked the plan all season long, and it looks like they're working that again, as they are currently our two fastest racers on track in B-Spec. And let's see if they're faster together than apart, because right now, Introne's fastest time in his red number 12 Mini Cooper is 2:26.171. Rich Roman about 2200s off of that, as they come through, and Roman in the number 103 machine, which I think is the trailing car there. But still this morning, Steve Introne at 2:25.776. So again, still, even with these two working together again, not able to improve upon the times that they set earlier today. Milos Milosevic, who this morning was our third fastest driver, turned in a 2:27.592. He is almost a half of a second off of that time at a 2:28 flat. Trenton Kramer in the 44 machine out of Perrysburg, Ohio. And I think Trenton might actually be running one of Frank Schwartz's Mini Coopers this weekend. Well, actually, we won't call it Frank Schwartz's. It's Grass Paddock Motorsports.
Yeah.
Mini Coopers has a fast time of 2:28.312 currently. And earlier today, Trenton did not put in a qualifying time. So a pretty good run for him, as he's currently fifth fastest on track.
And it looks like both of the Benazics have reported pit side, heading back and calling it session done, as we see the 11 right now heading right off by Victory Lane.
Indeed, that's the black number 11, the third-gen Honda Civic hatchback of Rick Benazic. He's the dad. Matthew Benazic in the 0 machine, driving the number 0 car, is the son.
And it looks like one of the Nissan Sentra GTL machines is also reporting pit side. It's the bright orange one.
Yeah, and
now, can't find that thing in the dark. That'd be the 61 machine.
Yeah, indeed. That's Wilson Wright, who's our fastest GT Light driver on track. Wilson with a time of 2:12.605 in today's session, and just about 2/10 off of what he ran earlier today.
Okay, here comes the 0, the son Benazic, and also James Gregarious in his Mazda RX-7 GTL machine. So I guess I was wrong about at least one of the Benazics heading back pit side. Although it looks like this time that, yep, he makes the hard right turn heading back up the cold pit side.
All right, and
this is Gregarious.
all right, and we just watched coming by on the short chute heading towards the inner loop to the bus stop. Two more of our B-Spec machines. This is David Rosenblum in the Gulf livery number 79 machine, the Ford Fiesta. He's out of Mays Landing, New Jersey, and sitting in right back behind him is one of our multiple Chevy Sonics out on track, and I believe that is Anthony Ruddy in the number 86 machine. I'll try and get a number on that the next time by. You can tell JB Swan's number 3 Sonic. It's the silver Chevy Sonic on track, and I believe Stuart Black in the number 40. Let's see if we can get the number on that bus. Actually, I believe that's the number 40 machine of Stuart Black. as they just went through the toe of the boot. And I'll tell you, this camera angle here, as we're looking at the toe, it just does not show the elevation change. It looks so flat right there. But turn 7, the toe of the boot has such an immense rise back up to this, where it crests the hill, and then they come back down to the heel of the boot. It's you just can't reproduce it in camera.
And we see another one of the more modern B-Spec minis has reported pit side. Had the number 3 on it, so I'm thinking it could be the 103. And that'd be Richard Horn at Strasburg, Pennsylvania. I'll try and get a confirmation on that, but it does have Mini USA sponsorship on it.
And it looks like we've got a car off pace coming over to the bus stop, to the inner loop, and it has stopped itself there, and that is one of our GT Light machines, and that is
73.
Yeah, the 73 machine, Paul Sultanis, out of Monroe, Connecticut, the Nissan Sentra, our 4th fastest GT Light machine on track this session, but now certainly not I don't think he's the 4th fastest any longer at this point, as he is dead stick there, as we've got a little bit over 3 minutes remaining here in this afternoon's qualifying session for our production car classes, GT Light and B-Spec as well.
As we see, McAllister has reported pit side, and looks like they're just checking tire pressures there. McAllister, of course, is your top F production car in this session with a lap time of 2:15.661, and that is the 4th fastest overall.
And looks like JB Swan might have outbraked himself going into the inner loop in the 03 Mini, or probably not Mini, the 03 Chevy Sonic. And it's either that or he wanted to join that GT Light machine over there for a moment. There's JB coming through. Just wanted to wave hello, stop by, see everything, make sure everything's okay. But he is back underway. The lead car here coming through the chute over at turn 6 and heading down the hill.
You see David Colby looks like he is reported pit side as well. Up, and there he is turning right back up the cold side of the pit.
All right, so he heads back to the paddock as well, and sitting on the pit lane right now, we've got another one of our F production Mazda Miatas, and that is actually, I think you mentioned it before, Mark McAllister in the number 13 machine. Crew has finished checking the car over. He's going to be heading back behind the walls. We've got, as you can see there, just about a minute and a half remaining here in our small bore qualifying session. And next up is going to be Spec Racer Ford, and I would suspect that they're going to be using the track to set some fast laps here for qualifying, much like our B-Spec drivers have been doing. And JB Swan, who we saw off the pace a little while ago, looks like as he's coming out of turn 11, he may be heading down into the pits.
And he does.
So the session for the number 3 machine is done. Stuart Black, who I think, as we mentioned, had been following around with David Rosenblum. Black in that Stuart Black in the red number 40 black Chevrolet Chevy Sonic, just turned in a 2:27.835. That was his fastest lap of the session, and that I think improves upon what he ran earlier today. Let's verify that. This morning, I take that back. He ran a 2:27.545, so just about 0.3 faster earlier today. And again, as we've had Fairbach and a number of other drivers complaining about a very slick track. Got word back from Joe Camilleri, who is an H production driver out of the Northeast, actually out of the far Northeast, out of, I believe, Ontario, Canada, driving a Volkswagen Scirocco. He is watching today. Thanks for the information, one, about the cameras. And we got to have Joe Camilleri as a pit lane reporter He says that Chris Copley in his GT Light Mini Cooper was out with ignition-related issues. So thank you, Joe. All right, checkered flag now out on the session. Last flying laps will count, and the first driver to take the checkered flag is the 117 machine. So let's go here, Josh, and quickly run down our top runners in each class. We'll start off with E-Production, where David Teal was our only driver to turn a wheel here this session in his Mazda Miata out of Webster, New York, a 221.894. The time in F-Production, Mark McAllister, 215.661, your fastest driver, with David Colby in his Acura Integra. Turns in a 221.379. In H production, Rick Benazik holds firm with a 218.691. Did not improve upon his times from yesterday, but he will go into tomorrow's race as your H production pole sitter. Amber Stevenson, a fast time this afternoon of a 221.775. Frank Schwartz, Stephanie Funk, and then Matt Benazik rounding out the 5-car field. In GT Light, Wilson Wright and Peter Tonelli, your fastest drivers, with Wilson Wright turning in a 212.605, 37 hundredths of a second clear. Peter Tonelli, James Gregorius in his Mazda RX-7, your third fastest driver, with Paul Sultanis and Scott McAllister rounding out the top 5. And then finally in B-Spec, Steve Introne does not improve on his previous fast lap of the day, but turns in a 226.171. Rich Roman, 22 hundredths of a second back at a 226.39. Trenton Kramer, another 6/10 back from Roman at a 227.021. And then Stuart Black, who again sets personal best, a 227.360. David Rosenblum rounds out the top 5 in this session in B-Spec. All right, so Josh, let's make a final call to the grid for our last qualifying group of the day. Attention in the paddock, final call to the grid for race group number 5, Spec Racer 4 Gen 3. Please head to the grid now. Your qualifying session is next. Race group 5, Spec Racer 4 Gen 3, to the grid, please. And so, Josh, let's take that break. We're going to take a little rest. We're going to have some cough drops, have some water, get all psyched up, ready to go for our last qualifying session of the day. By the way, I wanted to remind you that that production car group that we just saw, they are scheduled to have their race tomorrow right around 1:10 p.m. They're scheduled to be the first race after lunch tomorrow. But let's take a break now, and we'll be back in just a few moments with Spec Racer Ford qualifying here from Watkins Glen International, where you're watching the 2023 Hoosier Racing Tire SCCA Super Tour. And welcome back to Watkins Glen International, the 2023 Hoosier Racing Tire SCCA Super Tour. I'm Gregg Ginsberg along with Josh Ashby. And sitting in, he's made his arrival. His Eminence, Larry Lefty McLeod, came in on his private jet from Ypsilanti, Michigan, and he's here with us getting all ready to go on air tomorrow morning. And Larry will join us tomorrow. But before we get to tomorrow, we've got one last qualifying session here, and this is Spec Racer Ford. And we had earlier today, this morning, we had 34 drivers take to beautiful Watkins Glen International and set lap times. And we'll see how things play out. But this morning, Josh, our fastest driver on track, and he, I believe, might have been underneath the track record as well. Yes, he was actually almost a half a second under the track record in qualifying. Charles Russell Turner, Russ Turner, who we saw also earlier today in the Formula Enterprises 2 machines, and we'll see him go out for FE2 qualifying tomorrow morning. But Russ Turner, a 2:06.051. Which was about a half a second underneath the current track record. Denny Stripling out of McKinney, Texas, our second fastest driver, 24 hundredths of a second back with a 2:05.305. Sandy Satullo at a 2:06.177. Then Liam Snyder from Joshua, Texas. Liam ran a 2:06.740. Bobby Sack, multi-time national champ, at a 2:06.855. Jean Claudio Angelini, Justin Clautry, James Goffrey, Gary Glanger, Mark Snyder, rounding out the top 10. But so we've got Russ Turner, and we've got Denny Stripling, part of the immortal endurance racing team. 3 fast guys and Denny, and so Denny being now, I guess, not quite as fast as Russ Turner on track this morning, kind of holds true. But we've got 25 minutes for these drivers to show their mettle here, and they will be going out for their 25-minute sprint race tomorrow, scheduled to start right around 1:50 p.m. tomorrow.
And this is a category for those of you who just somehow miraculously discovered the SCCA and are watching this at home. This is a category that makes drafting at Daytona look boring because we have left and right turns, but you'll see cars stacked at least 11 deep at times on the front straightaway, although they do not recommend that in the turns for various reasons, including the laws of physics. Sorry.
My, we are getting kind of punch drunk here at the end of the day.
Well, I'm not sure we're allowed to say drunk on air.
Well, we just did twice now, and we're still, nobody's cut us off yet. So,
yet being the operative word.
All right. So, as you mentioned, and this is one of those tracks where, again, we're going to see, in order for drivers to set fast laps in qualifying, they are going to be drafting, and we see even on the outlap here, groups of 5, 6, 7 cars all together, all within about a car length or a car length and a half, hoping to use the hole that the car ahead of them puts in the air in order to get as much speed here as possible. Now, these are, to a large extent, momentum cars as well. They are using 1.6-liter Ford 4-cylinder motors, the same motors that have been going into the Ford Focus for a number of years, and in a chassis that is derived from a chassis that started off in 1983 in what was known as Spec Renault. And when Renault left the United States market, Ford jumped in with the same 1.9-liter iron block motor that was found in the Ford Escort. And in the last couple of years, we've now migrated to these aluminum block motors, which make a little bit more power, but we're still talking in the 135, 140 horsepower range. They're not putting out a great deal of power. It really depends on how quickly, how much momentum you can conserve to get these cars around a course like Watkins Glen.
Or how fast somebody can push you around Watkins Glen. So as of right now, the Bobby Sack is on top of the timesheets with a 206.928. And just as for reference, again, Spec Racer 4 Gen 3, the track record is a 205.643. And what was the record mark set this morning?
And again, unofficially. You can't set a track record during qualifying, but Russ Turner was at a 205.061. And as you mentioned, Bobby Sack, who's currently sitting in the high 206, almost 207. Earlier today, he ran a 206.855. So just a little bit less than a tenth faster than he is running right now. But I suspect with the spec Hoosier tires that these racers are all running, it probably takes about a lap and a half, 2 laps under load in order to get them up to speed. But we're already seeing, much like we talked about Gabe Fairbach, our FE2 driver, who chimed in a little bit earlier, that the track is a bit greasy. We were actually seeing that quite a bit as some of the drivers were coming into the chute. And getting some calls in from the corners of some drivers possibly exceeding track limits over at turn number 8 at the heel of the boot, taking up, we'll call it the iRacing line, but there are, and you can see how loose some of these drivers are getting now. That there are a number of places where a number of years ago, when this track was repaved, that what were formerly gravel traps, and we've got a car going off now at the 90 over at turn 1. We've got 2 cars off. We'll try and get the numbers there, and some other drivers. Yeah, one of them is the number 19 machine. That is Bobby Sack that has gone off, and I believe he's the driver that is over.
And those two were dicing down the front straightaway and had to take avoiding action on a... Okay, it sounds like the 045 is the second car, and the 18 being... but they were taking evasive action, it looked like, from a white machine, but we do see the 045 now going up the escape road back into the paddock area.
It looks like he came in. So as I was talking about that, Josh, over at the 90 at turn 1, over at turn 8, also coming out of turn 10, what used to be gravel traps here at Watkins Glen have now been paved over. And so if you run wide because, you've lost control of the car, you've got more pavement to help slow the car down, as opposed to a car catching in the gravel and maybe flipping
surfing
over.
It, like that famous YouTube clip of Jimmy Johnson.
Yes.
In the Busch series, surfing the gravel trap, stuffing it into the styrofoam barrier, and then jumping up on the car and acting like Muhammad Ali after a 10-round fight.
Yeah, but what ends up happening now is a lot of drivers, they have all that extra pavement there, and they'll try to use that to extend the track limits and try to go and open up a corner as much as possible and carry as much speed as they can out of turn 1 heading down the hill. Also, again, out of turn 8 coming through the heel of the boot as well, and sometimes that works for you. And it looks like Bobby Sack. And we've got a car that has now gone around over at turn 10. Nice recovery there, both by the spinner and the other car there. But it looks like Bobby Sack we just saw, and I know Mark Corner is calling it as the 1.8 car, but actually it's the 1.9 silver and black of Bobby Sack with a lot of damage heading back to the paddock. And it looks like we might have a replay here. Let's take a look and see what happened coming into turn 1, as we had one car take to the grass and go wide as it got hit from behind under braking, and it looks like a lot of drivers there in very close proximity had some issues getting the cars woed down at 1, and we can see a lot of other drivers also finding their way off. This is all a replay that we're watching right now, and there's Bobby Sack in that number 19 pulling through. All right, so let's go back to live action now here as we've got drivers on course. Now, I should mention that Bobby Sack even involved with that incident, and we did have the 1-8 and the 1-9 involved, and the 1-8 being Gary Glanger out of Dallas, Texas. So Bobby Sack still your fastest driver in the session at a 2:06.928. Justin Clautredy in the number 7 machine out of Jackson, Mississippi at a 2:06.993. And then Liam Snyder, former national champion in Formula Enterprises 2, Liam with a 2:07.402. Oh, did I say Jackson, Mississippi? You're sure it's Michigan and not Mississippi? It's Michigan. All right, so Larry McLeod, Michigander, now correcting me that Justin Clautredy, he's out of Jackson, Michigan, not Jackson, Mississippi. And when he comes up to tell me, Larry says he knows where he lives. The question is, does he know where you live? That's exactly what it sounds like. All right, coming down the pit lane right now is Russ Turner, driver of the number 23 machine. And Russ is only managed 6th fastest in the session, a 2:07.531. So our fastest driver here earlier today, quite a bit off the pace. And looks like he is now heading down and back to the pits. And the 68 machine has just come down the pit lane as well, and very much off the pace, Josh.
Yeah, corner workers were watching that with great interest. Looked like that he had a mechanical and was pulled way off, so not to impair other drivers. And looks like he's just coasting, maybe even dead stick down into the pit road right now.
All right, Josh, real quick, as we are just about halfway through our last qualifying section of the day, let's take a quick break. Thanks to some of our partners and sponsors that are bringing you the 2023 Hoosier Racing Tire SCCA Super Tour. We'll be right back.
Ready for a new race trailer? Bravo Trailers is the exclusive trailer partner of the SCCA. Owned by longtime SCCA racers, Bravo Trailers work better, load easier, and tow better because we build them with racers in mind. Visit bravotrailers.com to see your new trailer in aluminum or steel.
For over 25 years, championship-winning drivers and teams have demanded Hawk Performance Motorsports brake pads. Now you can have their advanced technology on your daily car, truck, or SUV with Hawk Performance Street products. With the improved HP Plus pad for that hybrid street and track feel, or Super Duty pads for tow vehicles, their all-new ER1 brake pad designed to take on even the longest race, and their all-new high-performance brake fluid, Hawk has all of your braking needs covered. Visit hawkperformance.com and like them on Facebook or Instagram to learn more about the Hawk Performance Advantage. Hawk Performance, what's stopping you?
Hoosier Racing Tire is proud to be the presenting sponsor of SCCA's Super Tour. Hoosier's mission is to be the dominant, customer-driven provider of tires to race teams domestically and internationally. Realizing Hoosier's existence and continued success is dependent upon how well we meet our customers' expectations by providing the safest, most reliable, high-quality race tires that put you in the winner's circle. For more information, see one of our trackside support personnel or the local Hoosier Tire racing dealer nearest you, or contact us at HoosierTire.com. Hoosier Racing Tires, truly designed for champions.
Mazza Vineyards is the exclusive sparkling wine for podium celebrations at the Hoosier Racing Tire SCCA Super Tour, SCCA Runoffs, and Tire Rack SCCA Pro Solo. Celebrate your race weekend with Mazza Vineyards and learn more at enjoymazza.com.
Summit Racing is proud to support SCCA racers through the Road Racing Contingency Program. Run the required decals to be eligible for contingency payouts.
And welcome back to Watkins Glen International, the 2023 Hoosier Racing Tire SCCA Super Tour. Got the last qualifying session of the day, and we'll be back on the air tomorrow morning at 8:30 a.m. We've got a couple more qualifying sessions to wrap up, and then we will go racing. First race scheduled for 10:15 a.m. I'm Gregg Ginsberg along with Josh Ashby, and we've been watching this train of cars still working the draft. Mark Snyder in that black and yellow number 127, currently our second fastest driver, or probably not second fastest, currently. Well, actually, yes, our second fastest driver here on track currently, and back behind him we got Bruce Myers, Lincoln Young, Peter Phillips, Jeff Lehner, Lee McNish, all lined up, all trying to use that draft to increase their standing, and Jeff Lehner currently right now ninth fastest. Let's see who else here. Liam Snyder in the 128, fourth fastest. Lincoln Young, 11th fastest. So drivers right around the mid-pack. Mark Snyder in the 127 car, who's leading that train, currently 15th fastest. I'm sure some of them thinking, well, you know, maybe we need to get around that car. As you can see now, we talked about the track limits coming through turn one, and you can see how many drivers using as much of that pavement as possible. As we've got now about 8.5 minutes now remaining here in our Spec Racer Ford qualifying. Remember, our provisional pole sitter is Russ Turner, driver of the number 23 machine. He's out of Montpelier, Virginia, representing the Washington, D.C. region with a qualifying time of 2:05.061, and has been the case pretty much for each session as we after we came on air here today at around 2 o'clock. Drivers not finding the track nearly as quick as they did this morning, as the temperatures have ramped up. We're running at about 85 degrees ambient air temperature right now. The Spec Racer Fords, when they were out earlier today, it was about 5 or 6 degrees cooler. But as we are talking to and have been talking to some of the drivers that have gone out on track, kind of hard to see from the shot there unless you look at the very top of the tree line, but the wind really starting to pick up here at the Glen as well, which could definitely be impacting some of the lighter cars, some of the open wheel cars. Certainly don't know if it's going to impact the Spec Racer Fords all that much, as we have now moving over and dropping to the back of that pack the 127 car of Mark Snyder, who had been leading this train. He's now slotted in behind, and we'll see if some of those other drivers can set fast laps. But Denny Stripling now goes to the top of the timing tower here and just sets a 2:06.746. Now that is still 7/10 off of the provisional pole time, and actually I take that back, it's 1.7 seconds off of the provisional pole time, and Denny ran a 2:05.3 in the early session. Justin Clottrady now, whether it's Jackson, Michigan or Jackson, Mississippi, Larry knows where he lives. Justin turns in a 2:05.729, a 17 thousandths of a second advantage over Denny Stripling for top honors here in this session. And this probably won't be very quick, as they're now going side by side down into the bus stop. Let's take a look here and see how this plays out. Maybe a harbinger of things to come when we go racing tomorrow afternoon, as they manage to get in line.
Oh,
and we had
looks
another,
like got an incident down in turn one here.
yeah, and I think we just missed it. He just pulled behind the wall. There's a cutout right before that grandstand on the right-hand side that he's pulled in.
And that would be Liam Snyder in the 128.
And we had Bobby Sack on the pit lane a little while ago. He is getting a tow back to the paddock. So looks like that car, well, we knew it had a good amount of damage at the front when he managed to get back to the pit lane, but maybe
we have a new top driver, the number 7, Justin Clarence, is now out of with a 206.729 in this session. So, being the last session of the day, of course, the track is going to be about as greasy as you can imagine right now as we're talking up here offline.
All right, we've got about 5 minutes remaining on the session, and we're starting to see some more cars come down the pit lane and call it a day. The 38 machine now heading back behind the wall. And that train of cars that were all working together and drafting, they're starting to swap positions now, trying to pick out who might be the fastest through set. But you can start to, especially coming through the bus stop here, you can see just none of these cars are really taking a set going in. They're still having the rear ends walk out on them about 3/4 of the way through the bus stop, as they then have to get the car rotated back the other way to go through the outer loop. And a lot of front end push coming through turn 6. As the racers that we're watching right around the middle of the field, time-wise, so looking at Jeffrey Lehner and Gary Glanger, Lincoln Young, 9th, 10th, 11th. Lee McNish is in that group in the number 22 machine, currently running 12th as well. Mark Snyder in the 127 machine, running 15th. And again, this is in about a 34 car field, so maybe just a little bit higher up than halfway. A couple more cars, number of cars heading back to the paddock.
And we've got yet another new driver at the top, and it is Charles Russell Turner with a 206.710.
Yeah, so what we're starting to see is Ashby, Russ Turner, Denny Stripling. They're knocking out a couple tenths here and there, but we're not seeing any very large jumps. And again, knowing that these drivers are more than a full second faster during the morning session. And as we were talking about Liam Snyder, that was pulled off over turn 1. He's going to stay there until the end of the session. And sounds like we had an incident between the 6.5 and the 135 earlier. That was John Ungunst in the 135 and Scott Ross in the 65 machine, currently running 29th and 30th in the session. And actually, I take that back. They were not having an issue. Those were drivers that they wanted to mark down as having extended beyond the track limits over at turn 1, very wide of the exit curbing there.
As one of my friends always reminds me when he's passing me in Forza with that is, hey, I paid for the whole track. I'm going to use it.
All right, so we've got just about 35 seconds here remaining in qualifying. And let's do this, Josh, because I think it's pretty clear that at least in the top 10, we're not going to see any big movers and shakers on this last lap compared to what we saw this morning. Okay, as even our fastest drivers on track right now are a full second off of the times that we were seeing this morning. So with the checkered flag now being displayed at the starter stand and actually just about to be displayed. There it is. There's that checkered flag as we got a group coming out of the final corner to wrap up their qualifying session. The last flying laps here, of course, will count. Let's take a look and I just want to verify here to 2:07.836. I'm doing a little mental math, and everybody knows that I'm not good doing simple math in my head. It's difficult. But our top 10 from this morning, all faster than our top 10 here this afternoon. So I'm pretty confident that Russ Turner out of Montpelier, Virginia, will be your pole sitter for tomorrow's race. And again, this group, Spec Racer 4 Gen 3, they're scheduled to roll off for their 25-minute sprint race around 1:50 p.m. And make sure to join us for that. Denny Strickland should be joining him on the outside of the front row in the 123 machine. He's out of McKinney, Texas. Sandy Satullo, Liam Snyder, Bobby Sack, assuming Satullo and Sack can get those cars repaired and ready to go for tomorrow. I would expect that they can. Gianclaudio Angelini, Justin Clautredy, James Goffrey, Gary Glanger, Mark Snyder will round out your top 10. So Josh, let's get things wrapped up here from Watkins Glen. First off, I want to thank you for sitting in with us here.
It has been my pleasure as usual.
And we're going to have you here.
People are actually listening and not muting me when I'm talking.
Oh, sorry.
I knew that was coming.
There we go. That was my little joke for the day. But absolutely, love to have you here with it. And you're going to be with us here the rest of the weekend, helping Larry McLeod, Lefty, who's going to be joining us tomorrow morning out. And we have a full weekend of racing coming up. We are going to start tomorrow morning, 8:30 a.m. We do have 3 qualifying sessions to get in before we go racing again. That is at 8:30 in the morning. But we expect our very first race, our small open wheel group, Formula 600, Formula V, Formula F, to roll off just after 10 a.m., about 10:15 a.m. tomorrow. And then it is with that group 7 more races afterwards, 25-minute sprint races, and then we do it all over again on Sunday starting at 8:30 a.m. And so for Josh Ashby, I want to thank Brennan Kazmarek, our director. I want to thank Zach Johnson, our producer here this weekend. And I want to thank all of our, according to Brian Polanski, our associate producers in the chat here on YouTube. I want to thank you all for joining us as well. And we'll see you tomorrow morning from beautiful Watkins Glen International for the 2023 Hoosier Racing Tire SCCA Super Tour. We'll see you tomorrow, everybody.